To start off with, you grew up on a farm.
Yeah.
Now, as an adult, years later, living in an era of digital technology, never mind AI, how much has running a farm like yours changed in a variety of ways?
When I grew up, the type of farm that I have today really would not have been possible because our farm is made possible by the shipping and the distribution systems that exist here in the United States that they weren't there in the 80s and 90s. So the most significant way is people can order direct from a farm. It can ship from our farm direct to their doorstep and shows up within 2 days. And that's an incredible technological advantage that is made possible for farmers today. And that's the biggest way it's changed. But over time, farming has become more and more technologically advanced. We irrigate, we can't rely on rain to raise our crops. We irrigate off of the water that melts off the Grand Teton mountain range, comes down through the Teton River on our farm. We pump out of that and put it onto our fields. And we run these big center pivots, the circles in the fields, and they drop the water down. And those pivots have become more and more advanced over the years to where you can control them with your cell phone, and you can decide rates that you want of water that you want to put down, and all kinds of fancy stuff. That makes so farming here in the West compared to farming somewhere where you don't have to irrigate, it is significantly different lifestyle because the day in the life of a farmer here is you're getting up in the morning early, you're moving water, and in the evening you're moving water. And these pivots have made it so that that's less of an issue. You can't put pivots everywhere though. We have a lot of places here on our farm where you can't run those pivots. And so there's a lot of manual labor involved in that, in irrigating those places that don't have pivots morning and night. The machines are a lot bigger on farms today than the way that my father or grandfather farmed. So we can cover a lot more acres with fewer machines. So that requires fewer operators. The machines are obviously a lot more expensive because of their size, but also because of inflation. And the size of those machines, though, just allows us to cover a lot of acres in a hurry. And so I think it was about 10 days that we harvested nearly 1,000 acres of grain here on our farm this year. And the conditions were amazing. So a lot of times when you combine, you're dealing with the dew coming off. So you can't start combining until the dew's off. And that might be 11 or 11:30 in the morning. And then the dew starts coming on when the sun goes down. So, at 9 or 10 at night, you have to stop. But in this case, we were able to start sometimes at 9 in the morning and go until 11 at night. And so we just got a lot more in every day. But the machines are bigger and we can cover a lot more ground than we could when I was young and when my dad farmed. And that's a technological advantage. Another one is, when it comes to using AI or definitely the internet in general, is just the access to research and information. So we are a regenerative farm, as I mentioned previously. That means that we're relying on the organic and natural systems to manage fertility in the soil, much more than a conventional farm would, for example. We might bring in some phosphorus or other mineral that would come from a mine, or that we'll have some products that might come from the Great Salt Lake, from the or from the ocean, kelp products, fish products, those types of things. But the majority of the fertility on our farm is managed through crop rotation, intercropping, and cover cropping. And there's a lot of research to be done about what crops, cover crops specifically, work well to accomplish certain things. So, for example, weed control, um, building nitrogen in the soil, fighting disease in the soil. All of these are accomplished through diversity. And so there's been a lot of research done over the years, and the internet aggregates that all together. And so you can use the internet to do that research, and AI makes that even faster because AI is very good at consolidating that down and trying to help make decisions. So, things have changed a lot that way, and it's made possible the access to information and knowledge that is unprecedented in the history of the world. So somebody might be trying something in Minnesota and they share it online, not realizing that somebody from Idaho is going to take that and use that in their plan. And most of our things still, even though we might be adopting something that somebody else tried, we're still just testing, right? So we'll try that this year. It might work one year, it might not work the next year, depending on weather and conditions. And so, for example, this year we've had a very warm year. It hasn't been, the high temperatures haven't been as high, but the average temperature has been higher. So our growing conditions have been amazing this year. And that means that our crops finished a few days earlier than they would have, which gave us more time to get cover crops in the ground. Around here, time is our scarce resource. We're dealing with snow from October through April, March to April. You'll have snowstorms during that time. So our window of time to really grow crops is pretty narrow. And so to have a warm summer that finishes the crop sooner, we were able to execute on a cover crop plan much more aggressively this year than we were in previous years.
Paint a picture of your operation today. The number of people that are working, the acreage, the equipment, all that day-to-day stuff.
So we have about 20 people that are involved in our operation, and they're working on different parts of the operation, right? So you have the actual farm growing crops, irrigating, running tractors. And then we have people that are involved in the shipping side of the business. So packaging orders, shipping orders. And then we have people that are involved in the cleaning and processing of grains, running the mills and the grain cleaning operation, driving truck. And so everybody is involved. Some people have very much a farm type job, and some people have more of a mill type job, and some have more of a warehouse and shipping type job, right? So you can kind of look at that. And of course we have customer service and, accounting and whatnot, but people have different roles and different types of jobs. But I like to stay very involved in the farm. And so I have some farm ground right around my house here that I get out and I'm involved with irrigation on it, every day. Water's off right now. We had about 1 inch of rain this week, which is the biggest rain we've had this year, maybe for over a year, the largest rainstorm we've had. And it was a beautiful rainstorm. So everything's off right now, which is very unusual, but very welcomed. So, but normally morning and night out there, for me, it's like, I hate going to the gym or even doing things in house. In the winter, I have to do something, of course, but in the summer, it's so nice to just go out, get fresh air. You're moving pipe early in the morning and at night. And I love it. It's a good life. And that's what we're doing, like I say, between planting and harvest. During planting season, it's go. As soon as it's dry enough to get in the field, we're in the field and we're getting seeds in the ground. Prior to that, we're cleaning seed, getting seed ready for planting. And then when harvest time comes, as soon as it's dry enough, I might be doing office work early in the morning or irrigation, depending what needs to be done. And as soon as it's dry enough in the morning, we're on the combines and we're cutting for as long during the day as we can. And, and I typically run a combine, but like one of my sons that's working full time in the operation this summer, he's driving truck. Some of our other kids are involved in irrigation or helping with accounting or customer service or marketing. So it changes a lot depending on who you are. But for me, I like to be, in a tractor when I can, or out moving pipe when I can, just because I like being outdoors. There's a reason I farm, not so I can sit in an office all day. So I try to be out there as much as I can.
And how many acres is it?
It's 1,600 acres.
16.
So yeah, and we're kind of, there's like I said, there's this Teton River going through this valley, and our acres are right on both sides of that Teton River throughout when it first drops into the valley here. A lot of our time is spent on fertility. I would say, it's probably the most significant thing that we spend time on. And that's because we're doing a lot of research. We're testing a lot of things around fertility related to our organic regenerative practices. So we do a lot of sourcing, these seeds that we plant. Some of them we grow here on our farm and others we don't. But like for example, if we're planting radish, the specific varieties of radish that we want to plant, what's going to be the best thing for our farm and our conditions. Clover, we want a winter hardy clover that can be planted in the fall and carry through to next year. Same with alfalfa, peas. There's a lot of research to be done about these and to understand when they can be used and how to source them. And so there's a lot of sourcing related business deals, right? There's a lot that goes into fertility in general. Just like I mentioned, those products from the ocean and whatnot, those are supplemental to our rotation and cover and intercropping, but they're really important because there are micronutrients that eventually move away, and we bring them back in the form of compost. But we if you use too much compost over a long period of time, it can cause issues on your soil as well. So you need a diversity of inputs, a diversity of crops, and all of these things make a much healthier ecosystem. And so there's a lot of time spent on constantly sourcing, planning, getting them shipped at the right time, not too soon and not too late. So you're not having to store them, but you've got them there in time. That's a very time consuming thing for our farm. I do a lot of work around selling our crops. So, alfalfa is a big crop for us. We sell a lot of alfalfa. So working with the people, the cattlemen around us, same with straw, selling them our straw. So when you're selling organic straw, it's probably going to be going to a dairy. And so there are a lot of dairies here in southern Idaho, and working with those dairies on timing when they can take it and how much they can take. And then, of course, our grains, that's very time consuming. So we do a lot of work with collaborating online with other website owners and social media people such as yourself, and podcasts, interviews, as well as just collaboration on sending them products and letting them try it, and they kind of give their honest opinion online about it, that sort of a thing. And so that's the general nature of the types of deals that we have on the farm. And I came off the farm as a young man and went into the sales and marketing world, which gave me a lot of experience for handling the sales and marketing discussions. Every year, it's almost like going into a basketball game. You've got your players, you got your team, your plays that you've run. We've got our fertility plan. We know what crops we're going to plant in which field, which cover crops, what our fertility plan is, but the weather's going to change it all. And so we're going to have to adapt. It's going to be, even though it could look, you could have the exact same plan. We don't, but if you did even have the exact same plan every year, it would be changed by other conditions and factors significantly, to the point that they would look unrecognizable year to year. And so it's like you come in with your plan, your game plan, and now it's all about execution. So if it went just according to plan, it would be a lot easier, but things change so much. And that's when it brings us all together and say, okay, this just happened. We just had a frost, or, hey, the snow's melting off faster or slower than planned, or it looks like cold weather's coming sooner than planned. So we have to come back together and say, what are we going to do with these specific fields that affects, right? So there's a lot of time and planning involved in that. And I'm just a believer that you want to, counsel together about that, because it's a lot for one person to decide on their own. It's too much. It needs the input. So my brother Jackson and I are heavily involved in that, and then people from the farm that we bring in, as well as outside consultants to help in some cases.
And what does that look like? Is that like once a month you get together, or once a week? Is there any sort of formal procedures or protocols that you follow in that process of the planning stage?
Yeah, it depends. The meetings are happening weekly, typically, but sometimes more than once a week. So like this week, we've met several times because we're at a very critical time in deciding when we're going to plant fall crops, what we're going to plant for cover crops. We've had to be very much on top of this, so that sometimes the day before we're adjusting the plan for that field based on whatever we've learned or conditions. And so it depends. Sometimes you have to be very much on top of real time, plays that are happening at the moment. But sometimes it's planning out, like our spring plans right now. We're talking about those, but they're very loose, right? It's more, hey, this is our general fertility plan here. This is the history on this field. These are the cover crops we're putting in right now. This is how it's going to work with the spring crop. but it could change by spring to where we're going to put a different crop in there, or the timing of it. Like one of the things I'm really working on right now is trying to incorporate some warm season grass crops into our plans. And so we're not doing a lot of that next year, but we're going to do a little bit of it. And that's very different than the cool season grains that we plant, which we try to get in early in the spring. So, it's exciting when you have different changes like that, because it offers so many opportunities to do something differently. Like maybe you can develop the cover crop more than we have in the past, right? Or a better green plow down is available in something like that, and better weed control. So there's a lot of factors that go into it that are really, I think it's exciting. It's fun to kind of see, to have the experience and knowledge enough to see the opportunity, and then to decide how we're going to go about it, and then to see how that played out. And we had some really fun things this year where we tested some ideas that were new to us and new to the industry that really made a big difference, like on our organic Coruscant, and what we've done with the history on that field. It was I think a great success for us, and I'm really proud of all the work that everybody did to think through that, to plan on it, and to execute very well. Which a lot of that's my brother that's really executing on that. He's running the farm operation, oversees that farm operation, and it's amazing execution that Jackson did to make that happen. And a lot of it's just making the right decision in the moment and getting it done just right, and it worked out. It was awesome.
You mentioned research before. When do you do the research?
I'm always listening to a book, podcast, or I'm reading papers, or using Google or AI to just puzzle. I'm asking a question about it. Like right now, I'm looking for a specific seed, and I'm trying to find the best seed for that specific crop. Where would I source that seed? What's going to work best in my area? How can I find an expert to help me with that? And so I have been so blessed by mentors. When it comes to seeds, I can tell you so many stories about, and it's very sad, but a lot of these guys have passed away. They were in their 70s and 80s when they were mentoring me. And I just wish I could have had, recorded conversations like this with them, where, these guys were helping me to get the groundwork of the business today. And I wish I could give them more credit for all the years of work that they did to make that possible. And it was, it's one of my favorite things about this business is the collaboration that you can have. And, a lot of it's just driven by passion. It's driven by curiosity and interest, and just intrigue with this incredible world we live in, and what it provides for us in terms of the food and experiences.
When do you have time to collaborate?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm busy, but I have a great team of people too. Everybody's doing their part. And so I have time allocated for doing that, for having discussions like this, and just working with people and getting to know them.
Again, I'm just amazed that you even have time, given the demands of a farm.
Yeah.
To be you're busy a lot.
It's very busy. It truly is. And, there's only so much a person can do. We all have 24 hours in a day. And so I think it's just making the best use of it. I'm doing it with family, and that's what makes it possible. If I wasn't, I simply couldn't. Right. But working together with family, we have a strong family culture where we spend time together as a family every day. And, with meals, my wife is incredible at making that happen, and it keeps us close and connected and grounded. And then we go off and go kind of take on whatever the beast is that day that we've got to slay,
So I'm going to give you a few days. I'd love you to give me a scenario of a typical day, but I'm going to give you a few days to paint a picture for us. The middle of harvest, what's your day like?
So you're up at 6 or 6:30, and some of the guys are out getting the combines ready. So the combines ran hard the day before, and the trucks ran hard the day before. They're checking fluids on them. They're doing lubrication, all the daily maintenance that needs to be done. They're filling them up with diesel. There may have been some minor repairs that need to be done. So we've got guys that are doing that. We might be moving to a new field, so they'll be working on getting the machines to a new field. I'll be in my office typically. Well, first thing in the morning, I'll go out and I'll deal with irrigation, and I'll try to get that done as quickly as possible. Come back, and then I've got a few office things to do. And then our family has some time together in the morning for breakfast, scripture study, and prayer. And then we break from there and we go to back to meetings, office stuff for a couple hours, depending on the conditions. If it's a heavy dew, our farm manager will give us a heads up as soon as he thinks it's going to be ready. So we're we're working on other projects until then, and then it's into the field and on the combine. And when we're on the combine, we run a grain cart. So the goal is to keep the combines running at all times. So they're never stopping. They're just going up, turning around, and coming right back, and they can dump in the grain cart. So the grain cart's job is to always be right there when they're full and just try to keep them going. And then you have to have enough trucks running to make sure that the grain cart can always empty so it can stay ahead of the combines. And that is a hustle because we have to move grain bins throughout the day, right? So when a grain bin fills up, you have to move all the machinery over to a new one, the auger and so forth. So we have Dylan who's doing that, and then Jamie and Dylan and RJ did the trucking this year. So they would help him with that, and as well as keep the trucks going and keep the trucks ahead of the grain cart. And then Cooper was on the grain cart and just hustling, trying to stay ahead of the combine, so we never stopped. And then me and Jared were on the combines, and my brother Jackson, meanwhile, when we go through a field, I had guys lined up to bale all the straw off as soon as we got off the field. So they'd bale it off and we get the straw off, haul it to the dairy. And then Jackson was having guys that were running harrows through the field and then either planting a cover crop or planting alfalfa or whatever it is we're planting and getting the next crop in. And so you've got harvest, baling, hauling, and planting happening, in a given day, just as we move through these fields. Because our goal is to keep a live root in the soil at all times. So, we've just harvested this grain, so we want to drop a root in as soon as we can, a seed in as soon as we can, so a new root is getting established.
And what time does that working on the combine end?
You're running, like I say, as hard as you can. Usually not stopping for lunch. I might have an apple and some nuts in there with me. I'm not doing much, so I don't need much to eat. Just go, and water, lots of water. And then, it comes to night, and when the sun goes down, dew usually starts coming on. So it depends how dry things are. This year, we were very dry, and that was a huge advantage, to where we could run, until 10 to 11 at night. And so when we wrap up for the evening, once the sun goes down, we usually aren't dumping too many trucks because it's not as safe to be dealing with trucks, at night. So from then on, we're just filling up the trucks and then fill up the grain cart and then fill up the combines. And in the morning, they will empty all of those before we start the next day.
What time do you go to bed?
Well, yeah, we were midnight, a lot of times during harvest this year, just because we were running so late. So 11:30, midnight wasn't uncommon.
Okay, another typical day. Winter. What's a day on a farm like in winter?
Yeah, well, in winter here, you've got about 2 feet of snow, a foot or two of snow out on the ground. Not much happens on the farm. And the only farm things that we're doing is inside the shop. We're working on equipment. We're doing repairs and maintenance. We're making decisions about equipment, like if we need to buy or sell a piece of equipment, that would be happening in the winter. We're having some similar, research and discussions around seed and fertility. So we'll still have our weekly meetings, and crop planning, so all that's happening in the winter. But we move much more aggressively into winter is our busy season in shipping. So we have a lot more people that are involved in shipping. And so, working with customers, customer service, working with the shipping companies, UPS, FedEx, and any of the long haul trucking brokers that we work with. All of that is logistics, I guess, is where a lot of the time goes. And then I'm much more involved in marketing projects. So we run some sales over that period of time. So like Black Friday, we'll run a sale, and because we are so busy during that time, we need more staff. So I spend a little bit more time finding people to work for us if we need to fill a spot here or there, or dealing with staffing issues. And then, just a lot of like product planning, working on new products that are coming out. So every time you route a product, you got to do photography for that product. You got to do labels, and you got to get approvals from the certifiers, and everybody's got to be, give the okay and the stamp on it, and then we move ahead. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's happening in the winter. And winter is actually, other than some very, very busy times in the summer, during harvest and irrigation is intense, but for us, winter is just as busy. I mean, in general, for any given person, it changes significantly. But for me, my workload in the winter is significant because that's our busy shipping season.
If you could teach people who have no idea what it means to produce food, never mind grains, ancient grains, as an American farmer today, what do you wish more people understood about that process?
Well, there's a lot more to it than it seems. And it has to do with mechanics and physics mostly that we take for granted. When a customer receives one of our bowls of grain or a bag of grain, and they pour it in a bowl on their table, and they see how uniform, beautiful, and clean it is. You have to remember that came from a regenerative farm where we grew multiple species together, and we have a system that can separate all of that, right? But we had to plan ahead to know what we were going to plant, so we were going to have diversity in the field, but so that we could separate them still, right? There had to be something in terms of density, size, color, or a combination of those to make it possible to separate it. So a lot of planning went into that, and sometimes things don't go as planned, and so when you look at the cost of things, the amount of machinery and the expense of that machinery and labor and land, it might seem expensive sometimes to people. But on top of all of those expenses, we're also growing grains that yield much lower than modern wheat, right? So ancient grains don't yield as much. That's why people grow modern wheat. And so we're hoping to pack more nutrition and flavor into less, but it requires more land to do that. So you still have the same land cost, the same equipment cost, the same irrigation cost on less yield. That's why they cost more money. It's a real thing. There's a reason why the big mills out there don't want to run ancient grains. Is because that business model is not as interesting to them. And so, and then the other thing that isn't necessarily farming related, but all that we do that is just more part of the business and working with us as a customer, is that we're a farm that's focused on delivering to you as a customer. So customer service, the shipping experience, all that from our operation is designed around delivering to a consumer, to a household. Most farms are not presenting themselves that way, and they're not designed to do that. And we are. And so our ability to do that is conditioned on having the types of customers who appreciate and understand the actual value of getting it directly from a farm. And we've been, Jonathan, I've never had a customer write me a check that bounced, which is incredible. If you go to our website and you check out, you can use, a credit card, or you can use PayPal, or you can use Amazon, or you can say, send them a check. Well, we have customers that have done that for years, and I've never had a customer take advantage of that. And it's such a sweet thing to be able to say that. The types of customers that we work with are people who are connected to the land, and they are connected to their food, and they value that. And it makes it possible for us to do what we do. I don't have complaints about our customers. It's a blessing to be able to work with them. And one of my favorite things to do is we do these tours on our farm. And, if you're coming in December, it's not going to be a very interesting tour. You'll see our grain cleaning and our shipping and milling. That's interesting. But if you come in June, July, or August, you're going to come out in a field, right? And I'm going to put a head of Coruscant in your hand and a head of Spelt in your hand, a head of Emmer and Einkorn. And you're going to be looking at these grains right in your hand growing that are going to end up, in someone's home later that year. And that is such a cool thing to be able to show them that. And especially when it's little children, they see that and they understand it. It's something about connecting them to their food. And it's a very beautiful thing. And I just encourage people to do that, to come for a tour of our farm or go to another farm and try to understand all that it takes to make it possible. I'm not complaining. I'm thankful to be able to do it. But it's very good to be connected to your food and just understand and appreciate that. It'll also help you to start making buying decisions and realize the value of doing something today that wasn't possible in the past, which is going and getting it direct from a farmer to you. If you were in a big city, it went to a central market and you went and picked it up. If you were in a big city, a long time ago or even recently today, but now you can order direct from a farm. And it's a neat thing to be able to do that as a farm and as a customer.
Last area I'd love to hear you share about the meals that must play a part in just gathering as a family and as a unit together on this dynamic operation. How much do meals play a part in your everyday life as a farmer and as a family?
Well, so we have 7 kids, Julie and I do, and we homeschool. So, this house is running constantly, right? I mean, it's a school, it's a house, it's a farm, it's all of that. And so meals are at the center of that. That's when we come together. That's when we slow down and we all look at each other and ask how things are going. And my wife, Julie, is amazing at making that happen. And it's a big deal. It's a big job. She often feels like she's baking all day, and she is. It's she and I just got back from a trip this morning, and so she got some time off. I was in some meetings, and she went to get a late lunch, and she was by herself for the first time. She was just talking about how peaceful it was. She was in this restaurant with beautiful music, eating food she didn't have to make, and it was such a good break for her. But that's because it's go time when we're here at the family, and she's making pancakes. Or yesterday she made a whole bunch of muffins. She made like 4 dozen muffins. By the time I got home, they were gone. They were that good. They were delicious. So, but she's making these meals, and the kids are helping to some degree to the degree she wants them to. but she's an amazing baker, and she uses ancient grain. She makes this sourdough bread. It's a combination. She doesn't even get too worried about what's in it. She'll do a combination of Spelt, Einkorn, Emmer, and Coruscant, and whatever she feels like doing at the time, and she'll make the sourdough bread out of that combination. And that's what is there on the shelf if somebody needs a sandwich or whatever. It's also used in the meals. But Julie makes naan bread and curry and all kinds of different foods from all over the world. Mexican food we love. She makes pancakes. She'll make English muffins to go with eggs and sausage, or and she she keeps a garden around here too with berries and herbs and roots, and so and squash. So she pulls from all of those to be part of the meals. But on the given day, we might come in for our family time and have breakfast in the morning with maybe some cereal that was made with barley and einkorn, or Einkorn and Millet, or some combination, together with some berries in there and some cream, and then a vegetable on the side. That'd be a common breakfast around here, or a granola. She makes homemade granola that's incredible. And then at lunch around here, it depends on the time of year. If we're in harvest, I'm not sure what's happening exactly. I'm not too concerned about getting a meal myself, and so people might be making sandwiches, or Julie might be making them. A lot of times, what she'll do is make a late dinner. I mean, a late lunch that will serve as lunch and dinner. So she's making, you know, 2 large meals a day, and then people can make a sandwich or whatever during the day if they need to. That's pretty common. But you know, we like to try to eat an early dinner if possible, if the schedule allows, so we're not eating late. For health, I think that's a lot better. Um, you know, a good breakfast, an early dinner is ideal, and a little snack during the day. That's kind of how, as I get older, I need less and less. Now, my 20-year-old boys will disagree with that. They need a good solid 4 meals a day. So she also has plenty of you know, food around for them, leftover muffins or bread, or you know, have an egg on toast. We have chickens and they lay eggs, and so we use those obviously pretty extensively here in our house.
You eat well.
We eat very well. It's, you know, it's hard because we go out to eat and you're just not going to find the kind of food that Julie makes eating out. And so, but she needs a break too, you know. It's intense. So we really appreciate her, and we all she enjoys, you know, making it so that everybody can have healthy and good meals. She takes good care of us, and we appreciate that too, because you know, life is not fun if you don't have good food, in my opinion.
Last question. Can you think of anything come to mind when you think of things that you, so far as what has surprised you or delighted you, or either one of those, when it comes to what your customers have done with the ancient grains that you sell them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, I already mentioned our customers and how amazing these people are. And I've got a pile here of just, these are, you know, letters that customers have sent. It's a small sample of them because many of them come by email or text, but in this case, they were letters. So I have a stack for that. But of people who, like one family during COVID just sent us a check for $500. They wanted nothing in return. They just said, please keep going. And this is our support to help you. I didn't cash that check because we were actually really busy as a farm. You know, nobody could get food. There were shortages of flour. So we were doing great during COVID. And it was, anyway, but our customers are so thoughtful and they appreciate and understand so much what we're doing here, that there's a little boy named Cole who, he's a homeschooled boy, and his mom wanted, you know, as part of his education, for him to learn about sourdough bread. And she didn't stop there, but they got a grain mill and they milled it. So they bought some grains from us, and this boy was able to mill those grains into flour and then to make sourdough bread with it. And his family got to eat it. And I think, what a great education. And I don't care if you homeschool or not, you can educate your children and you can teach them about the value of food. I thought that was beautiful. And that happens, you know, that's the life of many of our customers, but it's one specific story that touched me because Cole, as part of his homeschool assignment, wrote me a letter and told me about the experience. This was the sweetest letter, you know? Anyway, so that was touching and memorable. But I often, you know, I get most of the stories when customers call in, and I do get a chance to speak with some customers on the phone, or they come in and they, you know, they get a tour. And one of these was, it was interesting. So it was an influencer, you know, a gal on Instagram. Her dad heard about our grains, and he told her about it. And he said, "You got to talk to these guys." And he started eating our grains, and he was actually in this area. They had a friend in this area, and he contacted me, and he came and rode on the combine with me during Coruscant harvest, the field of Coruscant that we were harvesting. He hopped on the combine with me, tracked me down, and he just wanted to tell me about how much our grains have helped with his digestion and how much better he's feeling. Just eating whole grains, healthy whole grains as part of his diet has made a big difference in his health. And, you know, a lot of people, they're able to avoid that when they're younger, but as you get older, you're much more sensitive to the food that you eat. And he's coming into that stage and really seeing the benefit of it. Another one was a lady that lives in Northern California who, she was a nurse. She was in the health industry her whole career. And when she retired, she had irritable bowel syndrome and all kinds of digestive issues. And she just felt like, this is not how it should be as a nurse. I don't know what to do. She started going to all kinds of different doctors and tried the natural path and everything. Anyway, somebody told her, you need to make fresh milled bread. And so she tried making fresh milled bread, and she would eat a slice every now and then. And she said, I don't think it's helping. And her friend said, no, you need to eat more. Like, you need to eat a few slices a day. So she made that change, and all of her problems went away. And just by incorporating fresh milled grains at the right quantity, she was just not getting enough of the fiber and the nutrients that fresh milled flour can provide. I don't know what other things were in her diet. I have no comment about it other than that's what she claimed helped her with just by getting more involved in the production of her food and taking more of an active role. She was able to see a pretty significant difference in her health. So there are a lot of health stories, and there are a lot of connection stories. Sourdough bread and food bring us together. I could tell you stories all day about different people, and it's a beautiful thing, but a lot of them surround health and connecting and just the pleasure of good food. And I think it's so fun to be at the center of that.